I'm Cienna.
Oh no, I missed it. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Cienna.
And I'm Madison.
And you're listening. Hey, I'm Cienna.
And I'm Madison.
I'm yelling at them.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm Cienna.
And I'm Madison.
And you're listening to the Just a Person podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Just a Person podcast, a show that explores life's highs, lows, and in-betweens. I'm Madison, and today we're talking to Cienna's dad. He joins us to discuss his experiences in fatherhood, including how his own childhood influenced the type of parent he wanted to be, and what the best and hardest aspects of being a dad are. Thanks so much for listening, and enjoy.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Oh, hi.
So today we have a special guest, which is my own dad. So we're going to start him off like everyone else with a little question. Want to go ahead and read that, Madison?
Okay. If you could change the way that you look instantly, would you?
No, because I think when you're younger, you might, but I'm 57, going to be 58. And I think you grow comfortable with who you are and what you look like. And this is it. This is who I am. Why change it? And you're always worried you'd have regrets, but this is who my wife knows who I am, my parents, my family. So I'd be okay the way I am right now.
Okay, my answer was drastically different. I said absolutely. I said if I could just not like anything like hard, but if I could just like blink my eyes and like snap my fingers and like pick and choose exactly what I wanted, I said yes. It'd be free, instant, easy. Why not?
Yeah, but you wouldn't be you.
Okay, Dad. That's my answer. I stand by it.
I also said no because I don't really care. Like this, like you said, like this is just what I look like. So that's fine.
Yeah. Am I happy with what I look like? Sure. Would I change it if I easily could? Yes.
I feel Madison's answer was very dark. I am who I am. This is it.
Okay. Anyways. Okay. I guess we're just going to get into the actual topic today. So to start off, like what was life like for you growing up and like what kind of kid were you?
So, it depends on like what age, So when I was young, my oldest memories, we lived in an apartment above my great grandmother's house in a little town, a little village called the Pew. It's me, my father, and my two brothers. And I visited that place many years later as an adult. And as a kid, it was huge. It seemed like everything was huge. And as an adult, it was tiny. And when I say tiny, the bedrooms, usually a bedroom's 10 by 10, was 5 by 5, a closet we used to play in, which seemed like a giant cave. I could barely fit in. I could touch the ceilings, and I'm not a tall person. So I was shocked what it was like. And it had a little heater in the kitchen that heated the whole house. Those memories, I lived there till about third grade. Those were pretty good memories. When I moved around third grade, I think it was fourth grade, we moved to the country called Lancaster outside of Buffalo. I loved where we lived. We swam in creeks. There's corn and fields and cows, and I loved all of that. But looking back, it was tough because you didn't have friends nearby. Where I lived before, across the street were our best friends. We could walk to the park a few blocks down, and we had friends there. Where I lived when I was in, fourth grade, the rest of my life until I moved away, our friends weren't anywhere nearby, so you're pretty much on your own. There were some kids, but if they weren't your friends, you didn't have much to go on. I think it was, a happy childhood for most of the time. I think I had problems probably like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade time frame that I don't think I was very happy. And I think that's part of just being in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. I think I was a very sensitive kid.
Yes. I will say that even into his late adult years, my dad is extremely sensitive. So
that's only because I'm ignored and I feel I deserve better. So I'm the sayer of truths, and you take that as sensitivity.
No, my dad is extremely sensitive, but
I think I think I am. But when I was a kid, I was quiet about it, and when you're younger, I misread a lot of things where you would blame yourself. You think, oh, it's me. And so I think that affected me that way, that I was always thinking it's me, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that. Whereas when you're older, you realize you're sensitive, but
you have more perspective.
yes, as an older person, I'm sensitive, but I realize it's not me, it's my children. So it's changed.
I was wondering how long it would take to come up that Cienna ignores you.
You get it, Madison. You get it.
Yeah. Ignoring the text and everything all the time. Yes.
I feel like we have very different personalities because I'm very not sensitive and I'm also I just like keep to myself, as Madison knows.
Right.
So Cienna, that's kind of a birth defect that runs in our family, that we have generations of people who keep to themselves. That's why Cienna gets along with my dad, who tends to keep to himself and more of a loner and perfectly fine being in a room all by himself all day.
I loved how on Madison's mom's episode, she was like hyping Madison up, and on my dad's, she's like, she's a bit of a loner, like in her room all day. Just the contrast.
No feelings, doesn't talk to anybody.
Okay, well, anyways, I guess, do you kind of want to talk about what your relationship was like with your parents and how you think that influenced your own parenting style? And I guess like what your parenting style is.
Yeah. So, it's an odd thing because if you asked me that question when I was 20 and when I was 30 and when I was 40, it's a different answer each time. And I think that has to do with perspective. So there was a time I thought that it was, and not that my parents didn't love us, but we never said, I love you. Never. I might have heard until I moved out, which was after college, maybe once, that either of my parents say, I love you. We just didn't. I never said it to them. It would be awkward and weird and just completely make me feel, just odd about it. So we never did that. And you hold your parents to a pretty high standard, and then you realize, well, you know what? They're people. They screw up. They make mistakes. There are things you might not like about them. When I was younger, our relationship was good, but I kind of felt like in some ways that it was lacking the kind of love that I thought I wanted to give my kids. Now, you ask me today, I think what an idiot I was at 20, 30, or whatever the ages were, because there was no doubt our parents loved us and they provided for us. And it was, they did all they could within their means. They sacrificed for us. So from my perspective today, maybe as being a parent and realizing, oh, there's some challenges there, I can have a completely different view. Some of the things that I was angry that they did or didn't do when I was younger, and I don't mean a kid, as an adult, where I said, well, they could have done this or that. Today, I look back at that and think, what's wrong with me that I'm judging them for what they did or didn't do? Because, I just had the wrong perspective. So at my age now, I think it was great. I think they were very loving. But at the time, there were times I felt like, they'd be okay without me, that they didn't, if I was there or not there, really didn't make a difference in their life. And today I think, wow, I wasted a lot of energy as a young person thinking that way, and what a shame.
I think that kind of goes back to like the sensitivity thing. I feel like people express love in different ways. And with you being my dad, for example, my dad every single day says, I love you. He used to text me when I went to college every morning and every night, every single day for years. Even now, every time before he goes to bed, every single day. Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of parents aren't like that. It's not just like a once in a while thing. It's constant. So I feel like that's definitely something you probably make a point to do that.
It is. But here's what's hurtful about how you're talking is when you say it's constant. I read it and it's like almost aggravating.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
The only reason I stopped, I still do it to your youngest sister, Reese. The only reason I stopped with you and your oldest sister is because there came a time when mom said, you should stop doing that. You probably aggravate them. And I thought, I'm aggravating them? Is that I wanted them to know that I love them and that they never forget that. And no matter what they do and mistakes they made, they know I'm here. And so I stopped doing it because mom said, you're aggravating them.
Okay. Just for the record, I want to say I never was aggravated by it. And I don't know where mom made up the information.
Well, that means I'm going to start doing it effective tonight. I'm so happy now. It will start tonight and every night and morning from now on.
So now I'm back at home. So it's a bit different because he does tell me now every night before he goes to bed.
I know, but in the morning when I leave for work, but in the morning, I always text Reese because she's still sleeping. So now I can text you too.
Okay. Whatever makes your heart happy. I guess another thing, when you were younger, what type of parenting style did you want to be? Did you want to be more like authoritative? Did you want to be more the parent that's friends with their kids? Did you want to be strict, lenient? Did you have any type that you thought you were going to be? And then in reality, how do you think you were?
So, when I was younger, I really didn't think much about being a parent. I mean, I thought I would be a parent. I first had to get married, but I assumed those things would probably happen, right? I mean, statistically, I said, well, it's going to happen. But once I got married and you start thinking about that, the things that I wanted to do, I probably reflect in your own childhood. So I wanted to make sure my kids knew without a doubt I loved them. Even if they're emotional or misreading things, that in their mind, they're going to say, I hate my father. He's an idiot, but I know he loves me.
Okay, for the record, I have never said anything like this.
I didn't say you did, but that was one of my priorities, to know that they could screw up. They could do the worst thing possible and think, oh my gosh, it's unforgivable. And they would know, well, at least dad will love me. I wanted that. That was important to me. And then
I would say that's been accomplished. Because if I had to like bank on anyone to like be there for me, I would definitely say my dad, like easily, almost like a terrifying amount.
See,
like there really is, I feel like nothing. I mean, I'm a good kid, but I feel like there's nothing that like we could do.
This is what's making me sensitive, almost a terrifying amount. What's terrifying about your dad's unconditional love? But I didn't want to be an authoritarian. I didn't also want to be like best friends, because I think you got to be a parent. I wanted to be funny because I think I have a sense of humor, but I also wanted them to feel comfortable. And now girls, I didn't want boys. I wanted daughters because I had brothers, and I would never trust a boy. They're disgusting, dirty little animals. And I think everything they told me would be a lie. I was sure of that because my brothers and I were disgusting little animals. And so I always told my wife, Leah, I said, I don't want boys. I couldn't trust them. And she said, okay, well, she has sisters. And she said, well, you don't have any sisters. You'll see what girls are like.
It's just as bad either way.
Yeah, that's what she said. There's a whole different thing. But I wanted daughters, and I wanted my daughters too at the time, if I had daughters. I wanted them to, not be afraid to take chances and failing, because when you fail, it's horrible. Right. And I failed in so many things, so many times, like all people. And some of them were terrible failures as adults, even, where you're like second guess yourself, like, oh my gosh, what a screw up. I'm a screw up. I am that screw up. You start really, it could really be a downward spiral, but you got to get over it. So I wanted my kids to know, try things outside your comfort zone. And if you fail, don't let it hold you down. Just get up and keep doing it, because I just felt they'd be successful and happy, and not to judge themselves so hard when they fail, because I wanted them to understand you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot, but that's part of being successful, is doing that, and you can't let it stop you. So those were the kind of, in my mind, I wanted them to feel those things.
Yeah, I definitely think both of those, even with the failure, I feel like as a kid, you definitely would say like stuff like that a lot, and like instilled it is okay to fail. And like, I feel you would always kind of talk about people who are like successful, how many like failures they had prior to that, and that a lot of people don't even me sometimes, I don't even want to take a risk because I'm so scared of failing and looking like stupid, but you kind of just need to do it anyways.
Right. That, I'm 5'4". It'd be like me if I love basketball. If I didn't play it because I'm blind in one eye, I'm 5'4", and I can't make a basket, but I loved it. That would be sad for me if I had a kid that loved it, stunk at it, but wouldn't do it because they're going to fail. I would be so proud to see someone who knew I stink at this. I'm never going to be good, but I love it. And out there on the court, that to me would make me very happy. Like, look at that. This is a fearless person who really doesn't care, and they're going to do what makes them happy, despite the fact that they stink. So I wanted them to do that.
So I guess you were kind of mentioning this. So you didn't always actively want to be a parent, but it's something that you wanted once you became married or going into marriage?
Yeah. So, when I was, in high school, I didn't say, oh, I can't wait to be a parent. That wasn't in my mind. I didn't think that way. I thought, I can't wait to go to college. I can't wait to go on dates. I can't wait, whatever it is I wanted, buy a car. And then in college is like, I can't wait to finish my degree and make some real money. And then you get your degree, and I couldn't wait to find a job. And I moved away from my home to another state, and find an apartment. And, and so there was always something closer that you're thinking about, right? And I remember a friend of mine, he was a long-term friend, and we moved to Virginia together. 3 of us moved to Virginia, where I first lived when I moved away from the Buffalo area. He was always wanting to get married, and we didn't have girlfriends, it's like, well, and he was always nervous. And we were like 22 when we graduate, 20. And I'm like, you need to calm down. We're out of college. Again, statistically, the chances are we will marry. Maybe not next year, maybe in our 30s, but we will marry. It's just going to happen. But if that's all we're thinking about, we're not going to have fun right now. So, but once I met my wife, we're dating and I got a sense this is serious. Then you start imagining being married and starting a family. And that's where, you start getting excited, because by the time I met my wife, I was 27, 26, and we got married when I was 29. All of my brothers were already married and had kids, and they're younger than me. And all of my wife's siblings were married and they were married and had kids. We were the last one. So I already had a bunch of nephews and nieces, and so you get to see that. It's like these babies and the fun things, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like what's waiting for us. So you start getting very excited for me, is when I was in that relationship, leading the marriage, and knowing like that's the next step.
So do you remember the time specifically when you found out you were going to be a parent? So with Madison?
I got married when I was 26, and Madison was born 3 years later. So I was around 29, 30. I'd have to look at the calendar, because I remember telling Leah, my wife, we were married a year or so. And I said, when are we going to have kids? And she goes, oh, well, let's give it a little bit more time. And I said, now listen, because she's 10 years younger than me. I said, now listen, your time, if you wait too long, I'm going to be an old man, and I don't want to have kids as an old man. So we can't wait too long. And so it was about 3 years. We were single. We were married for 3 years. We dated 3 years, married for 3 years. And then Madison came around. And we were actively trying to have Madison. So I do remember we got the pregnancy kit. We checked. It was, you're pregnant. And then we had to go to the doctor to double check. And it was very exciting. And then the one thing about Madison I remember is during the pregnancy, the Dr. Andery was our OBGYN. He came in and he's listening to the heartbeat. And then he goes, like a serious, And, I just froze up. And I said, what is it? He goes, well, and he heard something irregular. And he said, it's nothing to panic about. It's something we need to monitor. And I remember I didn't know what to say. Leah didn't know what to say. We're just like driving home, just in stone silence. And it turned out to be nothing. Right. But at that moment in time, the world stopped. Each of the kids, I have a memory of something that just kind of, with Cienna, we had to go to Mott's Children's Hospital because she was really little and they had to do a special exam and they might need surgery. I'm an attorney and I always think about this. When I'm in court, I'm not nervous like my clients are. Their heads are spinning, and I try to keep them calm. And so they're not worried about what's going to happen. I was walking through those corridors of the hospital and my head was spinning. I'm on a merry-go-round. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, they take her in a room, and at that time only one parent could go in there. They wouldn't let both parents. And so they asked me, because they said, you're going to have to hold her down. This is going to be uncomfortable. And I was holding her down while they were doing a test, and she's screaming, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm like, oh God, this is horrible. And so each kid, you have memories like that, but I don't, you remember the pregnancies and the births. I remember all of that. And the first time I brought them all home, I remember these things that worried me to death most of all.
So I guess, did you have any expectations for us and like what we were going to be like?
No, not really. Before you're born and having kids, I had no expectations. I wanted, like the things I said, I wanted them to be educated. I wanted girls. I always thought girls were better than boys. Women were better than men. They could do everything men can do and have babies, right? So they win. They have that trump card. We can be presidents, we can run companies, we can win championships, and we can have babies, and men can't, so we win. I was happy to have women because I thought they're the better sex anyways. What I wanted to make sure is they felt that way. They're not stuck in the men in any way, shape, or form, that they could do anything they can, that men weren't better. So I had that kind of expectation. But no, having kids, I really was like in awe of them. I was just, it's almost like when you fall in love, really fall in love, there's a feeling you have. And it's different from when you fall in love and a couple years later, you don't have that falling in love feeling anymore. But you have something different. It's just as good. You love that person. But with kids, you like fall in love, but it never ends. You're always falling in love. It's like, when will this feeling end? Because you get to see every new age they get into, when they're toddlers, when they're in school, when they're playing sports, when they graduate. It's all new to them. And so it's all new. So you're like constantly falling in love with this person. It never ends. That feeling never ends.
When all of your kids were young, like, maybe in like elementary school or something, did you ever think that they might like pursue a certain career?
No, I really didn't. It was hard. I really didn't have that. I have 3 degrees, so I kind of pursued 3 careers. And so I thought, well, what a waste of time that was. All that money, all those years in school. And they weren't like I got an advanced degree. I had 1 degree, engineering, then a business degree, then a law. So they were completely different careers. So I kind of was open to let them find their way. And I'm probably the last person to give them career advices because of my career. I was always real conscious, though, because by the time they came around, I was a lawyer, and I didn't want them, a lot of my lawyer friends, their kids became lawyers, and I didn't, I was open to that at different times. They'd all said, except for Reese, maybe said, oh, I want to be a lawyer when they were real little. And I didn't encourage it, and I didn't discourage it because I'm like, I like what it worked out well for me. I really like it, but there's a lot of lawyers that hate their jobs. I didn't want to do that. I kind of want to let them find what works for them.
I would say I don't think when I was younger, you guys ever pushed me going any specific way. If I changed what I wanted to do at any point, it would just be like, okay, yeah, that's what she's doing now. You know what I mean? Like, as long as it aligned with my interests, I don't think you guys ever like encouraged me to do one thing or another. Mainly, I would say I was always encouraged, though, to like get an education and like do well in school. And like, I would always say you guys also were big on like trying your best. So I think that was more important, kind of those like values behind it, as opposed to like a specific thing. Cause I feel like you kind of figure that out as you go.
Right. And that's what, and in education, it wasn't even that your education, your degree is what you're going to be. But by getting a degree, it disciplines you, teaches you how to critically think and how to write papers and present yourself. All of those things that you need to have to get a degree are useful in the real world. So it wasn't even the degree, because that may not be your career, right? You might get a degree in accounting and get a job in marketing, and that's okay. So it's really, I wanted them to get a degree. I did want them to pursue a career when they graduated from college. Sadly, in one particular incident, that hasn't happened.
Yes, my dad is referring to me. I am coming up on a year almost post graduation, which seems crazy. And I am currently unemployed. Well, I'm now a podcast co-host, if that counts.
I think that's good enough.
But I'm figuring it out.
And she's she takes jobs. She took a job in Wisconsin.
Dad, I took a job in Wyoming.
Oh, I'm sorry. In Yellowstone. I'm sorry, in Wyoming.
Almost there.
And she lived the life. She gets room and board and whatever it was per hour. And she climbed mountains and swam in lakes and hot springs. And now she's going to Costa Rica and doing the same thing for 8 weeks. And I say, if I keep working till I'm maybe 80 and save all my money and the stock market's good to me, I'll have the life at 80 that she's having right now. And I'm very bitter about that.
I guess just collectively, because Reese she's still in high school, but she's getting there. What was the hardest parenting stage and your favorite parenting stage?
Well, my favorite was when they were all like, Madison was say 11, Cienna was 9, Reese was a baby. And, I have lots of memories where we're in the car driving somewhere and everybody's safe and happy, and I felt in complete control. It's like, and that may be not a real thing, right? That I'm really not in complete control. People get sick, there's car accidents, things happen. But I felt I had control over it. That they're not out in the world, their problems I can solve. That made me happy, right? Knowing that that's something I can handle. Difficult times, I think, were probably, my wife warned me. She goes, oh, wait till, I remember because I didn't have sisters. And she would say, girls in middle school, you just wait and see how horrible it is, for girls to be in middle school and how they change. And I will say probably Cienna was the worst, actually. Madison and Reese had moments. And I didn't think it was bad. I really didn't. I'm thinking, gee, I think me and my brothers were bad, but where they wouldn't talk to you or everything was an issue or but Cienna in seventh, eighth, somewhere around there, I remember it was horrible for me. I would go to my wife and say, and I did this, I'd say, she doesn't say a word to me. And I would get them up in the morning. I'd make them breakfast. I'd pack their lunch, take them to school, and then I'd pick them up. and bring them home. And I would tell my wife, I'd say, Cienna didn't say a single word to me today. I didn't talk. I just said hello and, have a great day. And she didn't say goodbye. She didn't say good morning. She said zero. And my wife was like, you need to let it go. And I said, not a word, not even bye. I'm not looking for a conversation. So Madison, you get what I'm talking about.
It just sounds like it transitioned from that to you ignoring his text. Is that fair?
Yeah. So I was shocked. And this went on for a long time. And I talk to Leah and say, what did I do? Like, did I do something wrong? I coached her in soccer for as long as I could until she got too good and needed other coach. It's like, what? And my wife would always say, oh my gosh, she's a girl. Just let it go. She was the worst because it did end, but it took years.
In my perspective, I think my dad might be what I would consider exaggerating. I'm sure from his perspective, it's very real.
So here's an example of this with Cienna specifically. She went with her cousins. It's like she was little and she was going away for a weekend, which, away like up north, let's say. And that was a big deal. It's like the first trip without us, or one of the first trips. And so anyway, she called, right? The phone rings and it's Cienna. And I'm like, yeah, Cienna, what? And she goes, what do I get on my subs when we go to Subway? And I said, you get and I told her what she's saying it to her uncle. And then click, and they're all looking at me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, that sounds like fun. I carried on a conversation. I said, I love you too. And I said, oh, she had to go. And what really happened is once I told her what she got on her sub, she literally hung up the phone. Didn't say hi, didn't say bye. That was the highlight of the weekend.
Okay, maybe we should have avoided the hardest part of being a parent because it sounds like it was me.
But really, the hardest part, though, it's serious. It's what I said earlier. It's the worry. Being a parent is the best thing I ever did by far. There's nothing even close. But the worry, it's mind-numbing. It just health problems. The whole world out there, them making poor decisions, other people making poor decisions. It's mind-numbing. And it's hard to cope with. I talk to friends who have older kids and they say, hey, things are better like when they're 30, they're on their own, they have their own place, they have a steady job. And you kind of sit back and say, nothing's teetering anymore. They're just going along. There's always those threats, but they're in a better place. They're not going out partying with friends. But the worry is the worry. I never imagined all the worry.
So Cienna asked my mom this, which of your kids do you think will take care of you when you're older?
That's a hard question. I think Cienna would. I think Cienna is a lot like me of all my kids. I think Cienna's more like me than any of the others.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of similarities. I think Cienna has, even growing up, she has a right and wrong.
My own moral compass, you could say.
Yeah, she's a rule follower. I mean, she thinks on her own. I remember, there's no doubt she'll stand up for herself or other people, but she always, there are rules and she kind of respected those rules. And I have lots of stories when she was little where, she was very serious, like being late for school. You're not late for school. Now, I'm sure through high school and college, things change, but when she was little, she was a lot like that. So I think she has a sense of responsibility and obligation. And I don't mean that, I'm forced to do it. I just think she's got that sense of, so I do think Cienna, I think she would. I think she'd feel like, hey, I need to do this. It's the right thing to do. So I do think that.
So you think I'm the most likely out of all of us?
Right now, I do. I mean, there are times I thought Madison too. And then, and Reese is young and I think, yeah, she will too, but she's young. I don't know the final outcome yet, but I think right at this moment, I think you'd feel most responsible for it. Not that all of them wouldn't want to do it. I think you'd say, well, okay, you all want to do it, but who's actually going to do it? And I think you would step to the plate.
Okay, I'll say I'm not sure if I would be wanting to do it, but I definitely think I also probably think I'll be the one to end up doing it just because I don't want them to have to do it either. So I think I would probably be the one who actually does it if I had to guess. Okay, and then also, would you say, been able to keep your individuality as a person while also being a parent?
Well, I mean, what is individuality, right? It's your self-identity, like how you identify yourself. Physical, your career, your social status, your characteristics. So it's mashed all those up. And so whenever I think of myself, the first thing I think of is family. I'm a husband and parent, period. That's at the very top. Individuality, that is who I am. I mean, yeah, I keep my individuality, but it's defined by the fact that I'm a father and a husband. Just because that's number one doesn't take away from who I am as an individual. That's part of who I am.
And then lastly, is there any advice that you would have for new parents?
Assuming all new parents feel the same way like I did, you're so excited about being a parent, and it really is just a wonderful experience. I would say try to worry less. I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older, but it's still not easy for me. And I would really tell, because all the things you worry about, 99% of those things never come to be. And there's always, as soon as you're done worrying about one thing, there's always a new thing to worry about. And it takes away from it, right? You're happy but with your kids, but you're so worried, it almost drains you of it. So I would tell parents that chances are it's going to be okay. So worry less and enjoy it more. You're in love, enjoy it more, and try not to think too much about it.
Okay. And then do you have anything, like any last things you want to say, or do you feel good?
People, you got to want to be a parent. We planned on it. It was the best thing. It happened for me. I sometimes think, maybe I should have been a parent younger. My parents were 18 and 19 when I was born, and they were grandparents in their 40s. I'm 57 and doesn't look like I'm going to be a grandparent anytime soon. So there's, they struggled though at 18 and 19. That's way too young to have kids. They had 3 kids when they're 21. That's hard. I mean, 21. I don't know that I could have, done it, raised 3 children at 21. So you got to be ready. But no, for me, it was the best thing that ever happened, and it defines who I am. And if that's all I had when my days end, is that defined who I was, I'd be perfectly content.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of good stories about me and the rest of us.
And I guess one last question, I'll let you go. Is there do I have to give you my routing and account number so you can send my payment for this? I thought this was a paying gig.
Just send the bill right to Cienna.
I actually think we're losing connection, so we're going to have to let you go. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much again to Cienna's dad for being on the show today, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. If you have a story you want to personally share on the show or want us to read on air, find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at JustAPersonPod, or send us an email at justapersonpod@gmail.com. And we'll see you next Monday with another new episode.